Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're checking out a new aftermarket game controller for the Xbox One. This one's called the Power A Fusion Pro. Costs about $44, and we got it in through the Amazon Vine program to review. Now this is a wired-only controller. You've got about 9.8 feet of cable. It's a braided cable, which is pretty nice, and there's also a breakaway on here. Kind of reminds me of the original Xbox. So it's probably not going to save you from having your console ripped off a shelf or something, because it does take a little bit of effort to get that breakaway to work, but it may be better than nothing. We'll see what happens. I'm just going to plug it into my PC here. But all the components on the cabling do feel pretty nice. But I wish it was a little bit longer, and I get a lot of abuse on my channel when I complain about cable length for some reason, but I've got a big TV and I like to be a little bit further back than 9.8 feet, so these cables can go longer. I wish they did. You can, of course, get an extension cable or something if you need to, but this is wired only, and you'll have to tether yourself to where you want to go. Might be a better choice on the PC. Now, what's nice about this, beyond its $44 price, is the fact that it offers some features that we've seen on some of the expensive pro-level controllers, including 4 programmable buttons here that can be mapped to buttons on the front of the controller. I'll show you how that works in a minute, but if you have like certain key combinations that really are hard to execute on the controller, on the front of it at least, you could perhaps map, for example, this button here to the X on the front or something, and be able to more quickly access those buttons. Another thing it has are trigger locks here as well. So you'll see when I push this trigger button down, it goes down as far as you can see here. Now if I go onto the back here and flick this over to the trigger lock, you'll see now it stops right here. So it gives you the ability to push this trigger faster, and that's a feature that I know is on that Microsoft Pro controller, so that's kind of a neat thing to see there. It does light up. It doesn't do all that much on the lighting, but there's a button here in the back that you push for this middle portion here. There's another button here that you push that will light up the control sticks also. There's a couple of different colors you can cycle through. You can't really configure it in a fine-tuning kind of way. You just have to kind of step through it until you get what you're looking for. One of the modes here will cycle through colors, as you can see on the centerpiece there, and you can also lock it in with a specific color just by pushing the button until you get what you're looking for. The middle lighting button here on the back will also adjust the intensity as well, so you can change how bright it is depending on what your personal preferences are, or of course you can turn it off completely. One thing about the controller that I'm not fond about, because it really does feel like an Xbox One controller when you hold it, but look at the size of the control sticks on the Pro Fusion here compared to the real Xbox One controller. A lot larger, and there's actually a lot less movement here also when you compare these sticks. So there's a lot less of a dead zone here, so it's harder to do fine movements on this controller than it is to do on the original Xbox One, primarily because there isn't a lot of room here to move this stick around. And if you're really used to the way the Xbox One controller feels, this is going to be different for you, so you may or may not like that. And I don't know why they just don't make controllers the way the originals are. There's always something they got to change that's different. Everything else on here feels very similar. The D-pad feels the same, the buttons are about the same size, but for some reason they decided they wanted to change the control stick layout a little bit here. So again, that'll be something that you have to decide is going to work for you or not. Now there is a 3.5mm headset adapter here at the bottom. This works for both audio and microphone, but note that this is what the connector looks like. You need this on your headset. If you have something that requires this, it's not going to work, so just keep that in mind. But I think most of the gaming headsets out there are 3.5mm and should support that just fine. It also works fine on the PC too. That's the overall layout of the controller. What I'm going to do now is show you how to program the buttons on here, and we'll see how that functions with Grand Theft Auto 5. So we're playing GTA 5 here, and if I hit the X button, our character will climb up onto the dumpster like so. And what I can do, though, is map that button on the front to one of the buttons on the back. And to do that, what you do is hold down the programming button here until the thing starts blinking. We're going to hit the X button to tell it that's the button we're looking to map to one of the buttons on the back. It'll start blinking very fast. And what I'm going to do is push this button right over here. And when I do that, it will kind of lock in and confirm that. So now if I walk up to that dumpster again and push that button, you'll see our character climbs up on there, and basically the X button is now both here as well as here, and I can do that for any of the buttons on this thing. So any of the D-pad motions, any of the clicks on the the control sticks or any of these buttons or triggers can get mapped to one of these 4 buttons here on the back. So it does give you some flexibility, especially if there are a few moves in a game where it's really hard to push 2 buttons at the same time, or you want to be able to execute something faster. You can put them onto one of those 4 buttons on the back there and be able to do that. There's no macro capability, so you can't program a string of commands into it, but again, it's just an easier and more convenient way to get all of that in there. So that is the PowerA Fusion Pro. I like its feature set for its price, but I am concerned about the size of these thumbsticks. If you're really used to the way your Xbox One controller feels, this is going to feel different, and you have to determine if that's something that is a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what your personal preferences are. I have been playing with it a little bit over the last couple of days. I'm getting used to it, but I do kind of prefer the control sticks on the original controller, and I really wish they replicated that, because they replicated just about everything else about the Xbox controller. So it's going to be a decision that you're going to have to make before pulling the trigger on this controller. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by the generosity of my Patreon supporters. If you find the channel helpful, you too can contribute for as little as $1 a month. Visit Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more.